Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Psychic Hour on WLTKDB Let's Talk Radio. It is Wednesday. Hello. It's great to see everybody. It's Thanksgiving weekend. So I'm getting ready to cook. I'm excited about that. I'm putting things together. I'll be doing stuff later tonight. So like a fancy macaroni and cheese and a shepherd's pie and some nice, I have to make my pumpkin pie tonight too, that as well. So I'm looking forward to it. And we have the lovely Calise Simone on the show today, and she is a psychic medium. She deals with manifestation, meditation, and energy healing too as well. So if you have a comment for her in the middle or later of the show, please just pop it down. We're taking questions today about the topics at hand with what we are conversing about. So it's the interview series. And I want to tell some people about what we have coming up. Me, Kelly Brickle, what I have going on, some group events, and also some things coming up next year too as well, but we'll focus on December. So December, I am helping out Lisa Williams in Tampa, and the master teachers will be with her as well in Tampa, helping to teach and facilitate Unleash the Psychic Within, and that's December 7th through the 12th. And there's also a demonstration of a trance too as well with that. So that will be really lovely. That will be on the 12th. So come on by if you want for that. And that's an in-person intensive event. And then also on the 17th, Allison Gannon does online psychic mediumship fairs. And it's just really nice. You get a samplings event from a bunch of different people from around the world. So if you're looking for a series of readings, come on by for that. And then on the 18th, Diet Renee, also from WLTKDB, and a master teacher with Lisa. We're doing an online mediumship demonstration, and the details will be up this week regarding that. It's for the holidays. So a lot of gorgeous events in December. Come on by if you're interested. And the inspiration, because we're just going right into that, I'm really going to go back to the nature of color. And I really like going back to this topic because it's very meaningful to me. In life, I perk up, my environment. I perk up my emotion with color. And yes, I'm wearing black today by coincidence, but there's something colorful behind me. And there's actually a lot of colorful things in this room. I talk about it from time to time, even though you can't see them. Here, let me pull something very gently. I have a lot of delicate things around. I have a Galileo thermometer right here that I really love. Just I have pops of color and different stones. And I even have a really colorful painting near me too, but I think it'd be a little bit too tedious to bring that up. And it really reminds me and resets my vibration when I align with these colors. And I have certain colors that I really gravitate to, as everybody does. We have our favorite colors. And the colors that we wear most times are the colors that we need. I don't know why I need black today. I have to really think on that one. But I wanted to wear my rose quartz. Like I gravitated to my rose quartz, that pink color. And I wanted to feel kind of like a softer, gentler feeling. I wanted to feel like a love and heart uplifting vibration. And to me, sometimes pink is the color of friendship. Yellow can be that too, but I like it for pink as two as well. So Calise is coming on. And it was just sometimes, it's the mixture of energies at play. And I encourage you, if ever you are feeling like a little bit, I don't know, offset or down, or want that change, you can invite color into your vibration in meditation. You can invite color even just in objects and in memories. A lot of times, a great exercise and resource if somebody wants to like change how they're feeling or change state, they kind of imagine their favorite object, right? That is an exercise. So you pull forth a favorite memory, and usually you want to focus on a favorite object, and you look at it. Whether you spin it 360 degrees. I remember I had a person who did this exercise with me, and one of her favorite objects, because it gave her hope and inspiration, was this peach colored Buddha. And sometimes she would put it in her pocket because it would remind her to like breathe and feel zen, and be more thoughtful about her choices and just to relax. And so when she would forget to put it in her pocket, or even when she had it in her purse or something and she needed to have that feeling, she would try to once a day to focus on the energy and the color of the Buddha, so that peach color. And it would completely calm her down and get her refocused. So whether it's in the mind's eye or whether it's around you, it makes life more meaningful, at least to me, to have a reminder of what so many things mean to us. So some of the favorite colors that I use within my life are reds. I really love reds. And so sometimes I wear red, yes, but I'll usually have like something in the room, or one of my favorite rooms in the house that's like a bright, deep, it's kind of like a really saturated hue. So it's like a brick red or a crimson red. And it really grounds me. It really grounds me, and it kind of reminds me to be more conscious of my body. Like, what do I need to do with my body? Should I go for a walk? What are some of my goals that are just not in the future, but my immediate goals, like around me? Because I think we get swept away a lot with what we're planning, what we're trying to do. And I know everyone knows that feeling, but we do have some colors that help, bring us back. And so red really does that for me. Growing up, I actually convinced my parents when I was a teenager to paint my room red, and it was a very saturated red, kind of orangey hue. It's very, very predominantly red though. So you walk into the room and it's like wine, and it just hits you. And it took some convincing, because they're just like, that's gonna be a nightmare to repaint. But I was just like, just like, please, 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 please. And after a couple of years, I think they knew how much it meant to me. And I finally got that red room. And I will go over to my parents' house, like whether it's for the holidays or a special, gathering. And that room is still red, until it does finally change. It will change eventually because my energy is no longer there, but it's still red at this moment. And I wake up every time in that room, or I enter that room when I first walk in, and I have this sigh of relief. It so deeply just kind of drops me back into the, I really like this feeling. I really like this color. And it makes me feel like safe and warm. And I can concentrate better, honestly, when I have that color around. Now, so when my husband travels with me, he's in the red room as well. And he does not like the feeling of the red. So everyone is so different. He really gravitates to blues and purples and cooler colors. And so that relaxes him. And so the reds do the opposite for me. Blue's still very zen for me, but it does kind of different things. And so when he's in that room, he's like, oh, sometimes it's just a little bit too much for me. It's a little bit too intense, or I just feel like a little bit too like the room is closing in on me. And so I want to just give you that insight. It's just everybody gravitates to a different color, and it gives a different kind of healing quality and invokes a different kind of energy within us. So I gravitate to the warm colors. My husband gravitates to the cooler colors. And I usually have a collection that really just makes me feel like me. And so those are the reds, the oranges, the pinks, um, gosh, and a little bit of the reddish purples. It just feels like me. So I encourage you. So there's music where, you hear that vibration. You're just like, oh, this is really my jam, or this puts me in the mood. Well, color does the same way too. And feelings even do that as well. Of course, feelings do that. But I encourage you, when you meet different people, to really tune into not just like the vibe of how they feel at first meeting, but the vibe of their soul. And so there's certain characteristics within people that we just naturally vibrate to. And we go, wow, I really like that. Or, I can sense they're funny. Yeah. And that comes with a series of colors, and that comes with a series of vibrations of sometimes even the way that a person can tune into that on the clairaudience level. So to stimulate these senses, we have to start to think like this. We have to start to not allow what we see and hear with our physical senses to be the only things we see and hear. In the same way with the feeling. Um, the last thing I'll say is to do an exercise for myself personally to stimulate this. A lot of times I will go into a room and I'll turn off the lights. And that way I stimulate my clairvoyance for the day. So I'll turn off the lights, and sometimes it sounds funny, but I'll take a shower and I'll turn off the lights, and I will look at my energy within the dark, and I'll be like really relaxed, and it'll be very zen, and I'll start to see color around in my aura. And it helps me to meet the day with a little bit of more awareness. It helps me to stimulate my senses where I can have that in my day if I want to. I don't always want to have that in my day. We get to choose our own adventure. But on certain days, I'm just like, I want this stimulated a little bit more. I feel like that's going to help me today. And you can do that at various times in the day. At night, it's dimmer, so you can stimulate your clairvoyance too as well. So I invite you, whether it's with clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, or other faculties you are looking to develop within yourself, make it a part of your day to include something not of the norm, and make it a part of your day to facilitate you growing the other senses that you really do want to see in your normal life. You really do want to work within your everyday being, and having that awareness just be natural to you. So invite that in, think on those things, and live life in color. It always helps me. So I am going to bring in Calise in a moment, and so we will see you in a few. Stay tuned. Hello, let's bring in Calise. Just like that. Hello.
Hey, hi, Kelly. Hello.
Hello. Happy Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, you too.
I appreciate it. How have you been? What do you have going on?
Oh, I've been well. I've been, after we wrapped up all the Halloween events and seances, I decided to just focus on readings into the new year. And, I just wanted to mention to anyone, if you are interested in developing your intuition or doing any courses, I will be offering some things like that in the new year. But for the next month or so, there are just so many people seeking guidance that I've decided to focus my energy on that.
Yeah, understandable. A lot of healing is needed during the holidays.
Mhm.
I want to have everybody know who you are for a moment, and I want
Of
to
course.
introduce you. So, Calise Simone is an Australian born, New York based psychic medium and spiritual teacher. She comes from a lineage of mediums and intuitives before her. Whether through an event, personal reading, or group setting, you can catch Calise teaching about topics such as energy healing, manifestation, and meditation through one of her many classes. Yes. You always have, like, I think, a unique mixture of offerings, because I never heard about you doing the seances, and that was something that you were doing just last month. So is
Yeah.
that something newer, or please share?
No, and that's something I've been doing since I've been doing readings, and it's more of a group setting. So, group mediumship readings are also quite similar to seances, but I've been hesitating to use the word seance because back in the day when I started doing readings, which is probably, maybe a little bit before or around the time you started doing readings as well, to say the word seance really sounded a little more risque than it does now, a little more edgy. And I think because more people are becoming open to this work, it's a bit easier to be authentic and just say, look, it's a seance. It's going to be fun. It's just us and our loved ones in the spirit world. So come and join.
Absolutely. With a seance too, is there a little bit more emphasis on the spirit worlds being felt by the group rather than individual readings in the group style?
I feel it's a different experience because when you do have that group energy around you, and when you are surrounded by spirit and the entire group is shifting their vibration and shifting their frequency to connect with the spirit world, you do tend to experience a little bit more physical mediumship, in the sense that you're not going to see objects flying around the room, or, I mean, sometimes things might shift a little bit, but the majority of the time you'll just feel and see the presence of spirit more. So you may see things where, for example, as I'm speaking, or as one of the other mediums is speaking, you can see spirit over, so almost like superimpose over their face. You can see them beginning to move into a state of channel. You may feel a hand on your shoulder. If grandpa is standing next to you, you may feel a physical sensation, or you might feel hot or cold, or different things that in a private reading one-on-one, the depth of the energy isn't as skewed towards the physical. It's more just the mental mediumship of the medium who's delivering messages.
Yeah, and like in a gallery or demonstration, you really are just kind of focusing on the person in front of you demonstrating. And in group readings, sometimes it's not as connected. So that actually, I do know, gives a more unique element to making it a seance. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that there's a few slightly different elements which aren't always incorporated into group mediumship. When you do gallery mediumship or group mediumship, it can also really depend on where you are. Like if it's a beautiful spiritualist church that you're used to going, your energy might open up a lot more than normal. But if it's somewhere that's just, a random room or somewhere you haven't been, you might find the energy slightly different. The messages will always be the same. The connections will always be the same, but the experience for the medium and maybe even for the audience might be slightly different.
What has been some of your experiences when you have seen people do like trance mediumship or things sometimes more closely associated with seance work?
It's amazing. I don't know, like I sound like like a really excited teenager when I talk about it. I'm just like, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. When
Love
I
it.
do, you know how it is, when you do this work, there's always there's a portion of yourself that gets so excited and nerdy about it because it's just so cool and there's nothing like it. Delivering the messages is an experience in itself because you're creating the vibration where you can connect to spirit. I say creating, but you're raising your vibration. So as you raise your vibration and you're able to connect to the spirit world, you're experiencing an extreme level of love, spirituality, and high frequency vibration. And then you also get this amazing almost satisfaction of being able to deliver a message that you can see heals the person who's receiving it. So it's a double whammy in that sense. You get the amazing experience of connecting to spirit, and then you get the amazing experience of watching someone heal from that message. Now, as the spectator watching other people channel and watching other people deliver messages and receive messages, sometimes it's just inspiring because you can see that they're learning and they're getting to that point, and you just feel happy for them because you can see that they're having a transformative experience themselves. And then other times, when I'm working with what I might classify as more of a senior mentor or a professional channeler and watching them bring through spirit, you can feel, as a medium, you can feel the energy shift in the room. So you can see, I can see their aura move. I can see the spirit move into their body and move out of their body. And it's as if, the way I described it to a friend of mine, because I was at a loss for words, because there's no reference point for these things. You can't say, oh, it's like watching the sunrise in the morning. How spectacular is that, right? It depends on what mood you're in, how warm you are, how cold you are. So I described it as being back in the Middle Ages and watching the king walk through the town. That's what it feels like. It's that moment of awe, that moment of amazement, the moment of there's an element of shock, and you just know you're never going to see anything like that again.
You never know what's going to happen. Some of the demonstrations that I've been to, I had really no expectations other than maybe, I've seen certain things at trans mediumship demonstrations that worked like a seance a little bit. Like, okay, so I have experiences, but no expectations, right?
Always, yeah.
And I've seen like hair grow on a person's face, or like they're like
wow.
Light actually glowing, like from their eyes, like where their pupils are. It was just light, just like two little beads of light. I'm just like, whoa, okay. Like, this is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And some I guess focuses within mediums are different than others. So like for these events where they're just allowing spirit to come, but they're not focusing on talking as much, but they're just allowing spirit to come, you can see some like really interesting things because all the energy is focused to just allowing the spirit to produce physical phenomena, if possible, within that moment.
Yeah, it really is amazing because what we see as mediums, I always wonder, I'm like, can everyone else see this? And generally they can, because someone will only trance around other professional mediums just to feel safe. But like you said, the amount of physical phenomena that you begin to experience, you can't explain it. I see this person and suddenly they're 2 foot taller than they were. And their energy just grows as the channeling increases. Their hands become, like 10 inches longer, and it's just a crazy experience. I don't really know how to. Yeah,
I haven't had that one. That's really cool. Like where they actually, wow.
From more of a physical perspective, though, it's just like a shift in their voice, a shift in their tone, a shift in the intonation. That tends to be the more typical experiences.
That makes sense. If I may ask you too, so people talk about ectoplasm a lot, and like there's pictures, right? Like on the internet, because it's like the history of spiritualism, and it really doesn't look anything like that. I think they were trying to showcase what it could look like to help people understand that, certain physical phenomenon looks a certain way, like a liking to, right? But it doesn't quite look like that. So have you ever had any experiences?
I think it's probably worth mentioning the difference between physical mediumship and mental mediumship. Because for us it's like, of course, but I think just so that everyone else can follow along, physical mediumship is not necessarily what you're going to get in a private reading. So mental mediumship is what you'll generally experience, where you're one-on-one with someone. They are going into a very light meditation, a very light trance, and the conversation will be something along the lines of, I have a man with me, I have a woman with me, I have one of your relatives with me, this is how they pass, this is who they are, and here's their message. Whereas with physical mediumship and trance, the medium will have a slightly different experience in that they will allow the spirit to enter their physical body, and they may take on the characteristics of the spirit in terms of the voice, the appearance, the mannerisms, and so forth. And then you have physical mediumship. So that's trance. Physical mediumship involves many aspects of trance, including the fact that objects may move around the room, and there are physical manifestations of the spiritual connection.
Absolutely.
So Yeah, so just to like get that out of the way. And then when it comes to ectoplasm, I struggle with it because there've been a lot of cases, I could say, recently where people will say, wow, this is the physical medium of our generation. And then it comes out 2 years later that person was a fraud or whatever, and it's really disappointing because it's a problem for the industry, because there are people out there doing it authentically that are amazingly talented, and it just takes one person to mess up the reputation for everyone else. And for whatever reason they choose to do it. So when there are photos of ectoplasm from back in the day from the physical mediumship seances, I really can't comment, in the sense that I always say, if I wasn't there, I don't know. If I was there and I could say, yep, I can see it, then yep, that's what happened. But because I'm not there and I wasn't there when they took the photo, I don't know if it was real or if it's not. What I can say is all of the photos from a certain era pretty much look the same. So it's possible that that's what was going on at that time. It's possible they were all just a hoax by the same people, but very unlikely. What I can say, though, is when I see energy moving, it looks more like a cloud. It doesn't necessarily feel like something you can touch. It doesn't have a tangible aspect to it. But then what's not to say that there's another level of physical mediumship that I'm yet to experience?
Yeah, very, very well said. In my experience, like ectoplasm is like a cloud. It looks so dense at times that, like when you're a kid in cartoons, right? You're like, oh, the clouds, like if only I could sleep up there. And it's like, the most comfortable mattress. And you imagine it just like, just supporting every nook and cranny. But in reality, you just fall right through because it's like vapor, like crystals and vapor. And
Exactly.
yeah, so if you were to, I guess, really kind of touch it or really look at it, you can tell that it's like, it looks like vapor. It's just like smoke, but it can be so dense. It actually looks like, like, wow, that's white. That's white.
Yeah.
And it takes shape rather than just the mist. Um, and it's really, really interesting, but I haven't always seen it. But when I have, I've just been like, this is very fascinating. This is very fascinating. And it comes in a lot of times to the person's nose and mouth area where I've seen it. And it's kind of like an indication of the two, the bodies, the two, the spirit body and the body harnessing the spirit of the other medium, kind of sharing space. It's kind of like the for whatever reason, the link indication, some of that I don't know, like the energy of the auric field kind of takes kind of on this mist quality when there's a connection at play, that physical. So that's the best way I could describe it. And I'm always wrapping my head around fun things like that.
Mm. I've heard it described as an instrument used to facilitate the connection between the two energies. So who's to say what it actually is? But I've heard it described as something that is generated by spirit to help the medium mesh with the energy of the spirit.
Yeah, yeah. It can look a little bit smoky meshy, actually, in actuality. I like that word as well. I thought that was very nicely put. Also, the difference of like mental mediumship versus physical and trance, and there's so many different types. And so, what was your first experience where you actually felt within your mediumship something different than mental mediumship, where you're like, oh, and there's another layer?
I think I actually ended up experiencing physical mediumship before mental mediumship.
And that's what that too. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because, I'm such a skeptic, right? That unless I see something or live something, I'm not going to believe it. And that's kind of how I've always taught my students. And I say to them, if I haven't lived it or I haven't experienced it, I'm not going to teach it to you because I don't know for sure that it's true. And I've experienced a lot of wacky things in the spiritual realm. And so then for that purpose, I'm able to say, look, I'm open to anything. Anything's possible, because you just never know until it happens. And then you go, oh, okay, that happened. I guess that's real too.
Yes.
So, man, to try and remember the first, my first experiences with spirit were that they would come to me in dreams and tell me messages that would then pertain to the following days after the dream. And so to be able to apply that to my life was something I had to process and something I had to work through, because I would wake up and think, there's no other way I could have known that. It had to have been spirit. It looked like them. It sounded like them. They told me something which then happened. There's no other way I would have known it. So I had no choice but to believe. And then it was situations where I was having interactions with spirits that were of a physical mediumship nature. So, doors opening and closing and lights flickering and cars turning on and without keys, and just like some taps turning on and off, and the kind of stuff where I'd be like, well, maybe. And then, but because it all happened, then I'm like, no, it's not. This is not a coincidence. Like, this is someone getting my attention. And then as my abilities grew, I was able to see who it was and so forth, what they were trying to communicate.
Was it one particular person in your experience, or that was trying to get your attention in that capacity? How did it go for you with that?
I feel that part of it was one particular spirit, but then part of it was also my abilities were opening up, and all of the spiritual experiences I was having, I believe, were my guide's way of getting my attention to say, hey, we're here. The spirit world's around you. It's your time to connect. Go and develop your abilities. Because I really feel the work chooses you. Anyone that's sort of had any traction in this industry will generally say the same thing. I didn't really plan to be a medium. I didn't know it was going to happen. The work chose me, and here we are.
Yeah. And as you were finding yourself more and more having these experiences, did you notice that your emotion came into play with your physical mediumship experiences?
In what way?
So for instance, sometimes I've heard in my own experience, and then in other people's experiences, sometimes if they were sad or angry, sometimes they had, or if they were happy or something like that, their emotion would actually influence what was going on around them with the energy.
Oh, okay. I suppose to an extent, but I would classify those experiences as a manifestation of the higher self. So, like, say, for example, and this is where it gets a bit more esoteric, so, follow along if you wish. This is like, for example, you're sitting on the couch, you're watching TV, and maybe you get a phone call with bad news, and you put your cell phone down, you go, oh, and then you're ruminating on it, you're thinking about it, and then you start hearing like a knocking on the ceiling above you, and you look up and you're like, there's nothing there. And what can happen is when our energy does get particularly intense or particularly one way or another, things can manifest around us. So sometimes it can be a spirit that's doing things, and sometimes it can just be our own vibration that's causing things around us to shift and to move. And I always think back to those cartoons you saw as a kid where the opera singer would sing a really high note and then all the glass would shatter around them. It's really not too different. But in terms of influencing the spirits I connect to, I haven't really noticed it in that sense. I always felt that it was just a manifestation of my own emotions. And when that does happen, you just catch yourself and you go, okay, I'm just going to calm down, take a few deep breaths, reset, and then it all goes away.
I think that's really real. And I think it's fantastic that you describe it like that, because a lot of people have experiences where all of a sudden they're like, the energy feels off in the house, or something odd happened, or even if they go to, let's say, excuse me, they'll go to a park on a walk or a location, and they'll be like, something feels different or something kind of happened, and they always go, it must have been spirit, and they don't really look into how their own energy affects things, or how they're able to pick up other people's energy that are living that was imprinted there as well.
So yes, yes, basically. In addition to that, what you were saying is that I would also like to add that many of the times, most of the time, it doesn't actually matter where the message comes from. I feel it doesn't matter where the message comes from. If you get the message that something's off, think about what you're doing to connect to the vibration of things being a little bit off, because even if it is a spirit, which most of the time it isn't, it's very rare that spirit can make those connections. It's quite hard for them to do it, actually. It requires a lot of energy. But even if it were a spirit, what about your energy is requiring a connection with that spirit right now? What can you fix? What can you adjust? Maybe you've gotten yourself into a bit of a funk, a bit of a state, and you can sort of, think your way through it or shift yourself out of it. Everything to an extent is within our control, even if it just means going and talking to a friend or going to a therapist or something like that if things are a little bit off. But yeah, there have been a lot of occasions where people will say, the house is haunted, or I just don't like the vibe of this place, or something feels a little funky. And I actually remember I was walking through Central Park with a friend of mine who's a well-known medium, and she said, "Oh, I don't feel right. Something's really weird right here." And I looked around. I'm like, we're in the middle of a beautiful garden. Everything looks okay. And I was just having a good day, walking around. I wasn't really trying to tune in or anything. I was feeling pretty in the moment. And I don't know, maybe she was particularly open at that moment. And we looked down and we were walking across like memorial tiles of people that had passed. And I don't remember the context of what they were. Maybe it was famous people, or maybe it was well-known people, maybe it was veterans. But as we were walking across it, she felt, "Ooh, this doesn't feel good." And it was just the energy of the fact that it was memorial for dead people, but there wasn't anything particularly spooky or malice about it. It just was a shift in the vibration.
A shift in the vibration. And I think it's great for people to think about, well, what are the different reasons that this is happening, rather than just spiritual activity, like it must be spirit, because with what we're describing, with like seances or physical mediumship or trance mediumship, or these physical elements can take place, the medium actually has to focus and shift and to bring in that energy to facilitate the environment. It really doesn't happen a lot of times spontaneously as much as it, I guess, is portrayed.
Right, exactly. And it shouldn't. If you're an experienced medium, you shouldn't be spontaneously connecting all the time. Those types of scenarios generally occur if the gift is controlling you instead of you controlling the gift, so to speak. But to your point, you can only perceive what you are the vibration of. So that's also something to consider in the moment when you're having an experience. Okay, what am I vibrating? How do I shift that? And what do I want to connect to right now?
For sure. So when you are having these experiences, how did you start navigating through that? Okay, I'm experiencing this. What would I like to experience instead? Or where does this take me beyond this? Because there's a lot of things happening around me, not just inside of me.
Yeah, so for me, there was pretty much only one path, and that was to go to the spiritualist church and start developing my abilities. Because I kept saying, yeah, one day I'll do it. I was sort of interested, but I was busy. I had a lot of things going on. I thought, yeah, one day, like you say, I'm going to do watercolor painting. Yeah, one day I'll go do classes and I'll check it out one day. And then all this stuff started happening around me. And I was like, okay, this is my time. I got to go, because now it's chasing me, And so I went to church and learned about it and started to harness the gift. From there, it was just having fun with it. Reading for friends, reading in circle, seeing where it took me. I didn't really have an intention, but I always found the physical mediumship to be the most fascinating aspect of the work. And it's something that I still feel I am a student of. Perhaps we all are a student of the work that we do perpetually. But that's an area that I have infinite patience for, is the physical mediumship realm. Yeah.
Yes, it is needed.
Yeah, that's true.
So you said, we say things like, okay, I have interest in this, like maybe a watercolor class, like one of these days. Was there a moment, or I guess an occurrence, where it just kind of lit a light on for you where, okay, I'm going, other than a thought?
There was, I don't remember the exact day, but it may have been when the car switched on without the keys. It may have been when I felt a man standing over my shoulder while I was looking in the mirror and there was no one there. It may have been the taps turning on and off in the apartment. It was a combination of all of the above. It may have been the moment where I was talking to the managing director at work and there was his grandmother standing behind him and I could see his aura really brightly. I'm thinking, what's going on? You know, and I can't say anything, right? Because it's corporate environment. They don't want to know about your dreams and astrological perceptions right in that moment. And it was just a knowing of like, yeah, I've been putting that off. I think it's time.
It's time.
It's time. It was just a general reckoning of, yeah, it's time.
You mentioned earlier too as well, like you don't teach anything in your classes that you haven't experienced yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the main things that you guide people in that you find is really helpful for them to know and to practice?
It really depends on the topic that we are looking into. But let's say in terms of using your intuition, listening to your intuition and giving a reading, for example, on a psychic level, something that would be really important would be to trust your inner gut feeling regardless of the situation. If you're in a moment where you're trying to work out, is this fear or is this my intuition? Just go with it, because on the off chance that it is your intuition, the 1 out of 10, that may save your life. So don't take a chance. Because I've made that mistake only once. I made the mistake, and I made the mistake because on purpose. I could feel it was my intuition, but I was pushing it away because I didn't want to bother the people I was with. I didn't want to make a fuss. And I was like, something's not right, something's not right, something's not right. I'm like, no, I'm just making it up. And then my friend said, yeah, something's not right, something's not right. And I was like, yeah, I felt that too, but we're probably just psyching ourselves out. They're like, yeah. And something ended up going down a few hours later. And I think, that was the one thing I learned quite early on, was that if you're going to dismiss things, you better be really, really sure that there's no risk involved if you're going to dismiss a funny feeling. So always just, when in doubt, go with the fact that it's probably spirit. There's no harm in taking it as a sign from spirit, but there can be great harm if you dismiss something that's there for your safety.
I think that's very profound. And even if you say things that people don't understand, I do feel like if something is with you that strongly, it does make sense. Like whether it's not initially or whether someone's like, whatever, okay, it's usually they come back with, oh, that made sense.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah.
If you see something, say something.
Say something.
Don't hold it in, don't hold it in, because that one message, that one word, that one name, that one feeling can be the catalyst to allowing that person to heal and allowing them to believe that this is actually the connection. You can tell them 100 things they need to hear, but it'll be the 101st thing that actually clicks in their mind and they say, oh my God, it's real. Everything makes sense. This is actually my mother coming in. This is actually a genuine connection to spirit.
Yeah, I think that highlights a lot within this work or with how intuition works. You don't know what's going to click for somebody. You don't. It could be the smallest, most insignificant thing. And so the nature of that, since you don't know what's going to click, if you feel something in your heart or in your gut and you're like, all right, I think this is important. You don't know. You just have to follow right where you're taken.
And you won't know. Sometimes they never tell you. Sometimes you never get feedback. Sometimes you get that call 8 or 9 years later. Hey, you told me this back in, 2010. It's like, wow, that's amazing. But most people, they don't think to call you, or they feel shy, or they're just so shocked in the moment. And so to be a reader, you do have to be very calm with the energy of spirit and trust that spirit's there to help.
And with like mediumship too as well. So you talked about how you encourage people to listen to themselves with psychic teachings. That's one of your main things. With mediumship, what do you really try to promote too as well with people knowing?
Be respectful to the spirit. It's really easy to kind of fall into this thing of, oh, I'm sort of playing with the energy. Is it real? Is it not real? you've got someone's relative standing there with you. You can't see them. You might not be able to hear them, depending on what kind of medium you are. I can hear spirit. I'm clairaudient is one of my abilities that I use in a mediumship reading. But it doesn't matter whether you can see them, whether you can't see them, you can hear them, you can't hear them. They are there, and they need to be treated with the same respect as a physical human being.
Absolutely. You know, when you talk to somebody, you don't just like start ignoring them as soon as your sentence ends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, to like have gratitude for them being there.
And also, when you might be describing them to the person who's sitting with you, you're describing them and they're right there. You know, you might say, oh, you might want to say like, oh, this person was carrying a bit of extra weight before they passed. And you might say, oh, yeah, she was fat. Okay, hopefully you won't say that. But, you know, that person's right there. They might not want to be called fat. Right. Even if they were a bit overweight or were carrying extra weight, like you have to realize this is a real person, and the person you're reading for, that is their friend, their sister, their mother, their child, their loved one, you know, their partner potentially, and to just have a lot of respect for the work.
And it does take a lot of awareness, respect, and understanding, because I mean, when you're dealing with passings, you're going to be dealing a lot with you know, how someone indeed passed, whether it's medically or a situation. And that takes a lot of thought and grace and understanding.
Yep. It can be suicide. Maybe someone had a drug overdose and you're very anti-drugs, you know, then you have to now deal with your own issues, and your issues don't matter because the person didn't come to hear what your issues are. They came to hear from their loved one. So you've got to put aside all your values, all your morals, be very respectful to the connection, and just be there to serve the person and serve spirit.
Have you ever had any, when you were first developing, did you have moments where you're like, oof, I'm aware of this and that does not feel very good to know that that's going on and I'm receiving it right now?
Possibly. I'm pretty good at tuning it out, but I mean, there's been moments, you know, especially with, you know, like cheating spouses and things like that, where you get this pang of like, oh, this isn't a good situation. But if you really are tuned in to the person you're reading for and you have compassion, it's just perspective, right? So who am I to judge what they're going through? They've come here for my assistance. It doesn't matter what my morals are in that moment. I'm here to help them. Sort of like a doctor or a nurse or, you know, an ER ambulance person. You're here just to help the person get better. It doesn't matter what your opinion is on how they live their life.
Absolutely. I think when you are truly connected, a lot of that goes away. And
yeah, it really does.
We come from so many backgrounds, you know, of life experience or what we've been taught or what we're letting go within our life. And some of these real human experiences can come up within a reading. And so, yeah, you really do have to all let it go. And something that, I mean, I really feel strongly, but was encouraged with one of my teachers was, you know, you have to almost find a place where you can connect with everybody. So there's some people that might walk into your office or, you know, be on a call and they might remind you of somebody. They might exactly remind you of somebody that you had an experience with and it wasn't a great one.
Yeah, that's true. And or maybe they have a name of someone you really don't like and it's got nothing to do with that person. You know, maybe it's a celebrity you really don't like. Maybe you're not a fan of Taylor Swift and they walk in and their name's Taylor Swift and you're like, oh, I have to read for you. You know, I think Taylor's great, but, you know, just an example of something that might trigger something within you. And then what are you going to do? You know, you have to just foster that authentic connection. And when you really are in the true vibration of the person you're reading for and of the vibration of spirit, like you said, it all goes away.
It all goes away. So actually, it's in the inspiration of it all goes away. Can you kind of talk about some experiences? Because like frequently, like if like someone has a cold or is not feeling well, but when they get into that energy, it just goes away. Can you talk about experiences like that?
Every day. You know, I might wake up with a headache or be feeling a little bit this, a little bit that, a little bit achy. You know, and it's so funny because there might be a time, like I've been doing readings for so long that every situation you can imagine has come up. And there've been situations where I've got a fully booked week and I'm quite sick, and you can only postpone so many appointments until you have to just get back in there and start reading. And there'll be times where I sit down and think, I'm not feeling that great, but I know once I start reading, I'm going to be fine. And I do. And every time finishing the reading and I'm fine, or I'll have like some severe pain at the start. Sometimes it's the pain of the spirit. Sometimes it's the emotion of the person I'm reading for. Unfortunately, very often, right before I start a reading, I say unfortunately because it's just something that I'm still trying to disconnect from. But when you are very in tune with the people you're reading for, you will feel everything they're feeling before the appointment, not just at that moment when you start. So if they're going through like a really, really bad depression, you'll start feeling that really, really bad depression. And that might make you not want to do a reading. You think, I don't feel good about my life, I don't want to do the reading. And then the reading's over and you go, oh, that wasn't even my energy. That was actually what they were going through. Okay, got it. But when you're in that state, here's what I think happens, right? When you're in that state, when you're doing a reading, particularly mediumship, you step out of your physical body and you operate in the realm of spirit. And I believe that's why we don't remember what we say. We have very little recollection. We're not actually making an effort to talk. The words are coming through us, not from us. So it's sort of like a light channel, as I said before. But when you're out of your physical body, it gives your physical body a chance to heal and a chance to breathe. And then when you come back into the physical body, your vibration is raised up so much that a lot of your ailments do clear up. However, you will start to feel, I have experienced that I start to feel some of them coming back. So I might feel pretty awful in the morning, do the readings, feel amazing, and then by the end of the afternoon feel, oh yeah, I'm starting to feel sick again. Well, it was nice while it lasted.
Yeah. Like we're tethered to our physical body.
Yeah.
So we still have some physical limitations. And I think like when we push it too far, we can start to, really feel that. We might have transcended it, but if we push it too far, it snaps us back, and it snaps us back a little bit like, okay, whoa,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, I'm still here. My cold's still here. Hello.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I actually was just thinking about something too. And then like the whole conversation of leaving the body and snapping back, it kind of like, made me go a little spacey. It's funny how, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just grasped it again. It's like, thoughts are funny how they do that sometimes. That doesn't happen to me too much, but it happens at times. So what I wanted to ask too as well with how you experience your mediumship, where do you find yourself going with it this year? Or where do you find yourself going with it next year?
I haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
I show up and I let the work take me where it needs to take me. I do feel that the more I do this work, the more it moves into a healing space, not in terms of like hands-on Reiki style healing, but healing in terms of being there to heal the people that need those connections. They seem to find me, whether it's through a referral or the weirdest ways. People tend to find me and seek me down, which is lovely. But yeah, I just keep showing up for the work.
There seems to be like more healing things coming in, and it's always fascinating because like within healing work, there's certain, I guess, instances of energy with the way that we connect to an individual that is quite different than mediumship at times, not always, at times. And again, like psychic connection is quite different than a mediumship connection, even though not completely different. And so sometimes the work starts to change with it because you're aware of working and connecting with people in a different way. And talked about like, oh, I'm always like kind of learning about, why connect with a person in a certain way. Like you talked about people's emotions and sometimes physical pain or the spirit's physical pain you might connect to. And I find like within healing work, like that comes up more strong for me. Definitely. I guess a story that I think will bridge where I'm trying to ask you about
Oh,
is
sure, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, right? You just follow the trail.
Yeah.
Like, I was having a great day. I went in for like a Reiki session with somebody, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling great, having a great day. And then I got into the session, and then like early midway, I just started feeling overwhelmingly kind of the things that you described, like hits on your confidence, right? Like, oh, I guess I'm not really good, or like the depression, I guess I'm not really good at this. But it was so overwhelmingly contrasted at that occurrence that it really helped me to understand like how I was merging my field with them and why I was picking up the things that I was doing. So I went from feeling really good to feeling like I was the worst Reiki healer there ever was on the planet. And
Oh,
so
no.
it was so extreme though that
It
I was
is
like, oh,
very
this isn't
extreme.
real. This literally isn't real. And so I've had other experiences like this, but you take something that extreme and it really kind of helps you put the pieces in place of this is what's going on. I'm just receiving their energy. So I have to
Yeah.
talk with them.
I mean, it's something you just got to know is a thing. And then once you know it's a thing, you become more aware of being able to connect and disconnect from it.
Absolutely. So with feeling all the things that you feel before the session, how do you find yourself going, ooh, okay, I have to make sure I talk to a person about this, or this will come up within a reading? Do you just let it happen naturally within the reading? Do you address it at the end or at the beginning? How do you work with the things that come to you?
I let them flow.
Yeah.
If it hasn't come up by the end of the reading, I may mention it. Sometimes it's not worth mentioning. Sometimes when you sit down with someone, they'll feel pretty awful when you start. Not that I think they're awful, it's just that they're not in a good mood. But by 2-3 minutes in, they're great. They've relaxed. They felt spirit. They've connected to the higher frequency. All of that's faded away. Their anxiety's gone away. Their depression's lifted. And you don't even have to ever bring it up.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can correct. It's just you're just in the knowing of their energy to help facilitate them. And
Yeah.
it's be spelled out always.
Yeah, it's I sort of, from the moment you tune in, you become at one with the person you're reading for that period of the session. I had a situation a few days ago where um, there was an energy during the reading where I had read for this person previously, and I could see that they had shifted since the prior reading, and I knew what was causing it, and I ignored it. I didn't feel it was a relevant message to share, which you don't do. You got to share everything, right? But luckily, towards the end of the reading, this person said, I feel like my energy has shifted because of this. And I said, yeah, it has. And I was supposed to mention it, but I didn't. And I'm glad you brought it up. Sometimes it doesn't feel relevant, but just mention everything because it'll be healing to them to just have it echoed so that sometimes they just need to know they're not crazy, that, yeah, that is what's going on.
Have this has probably happened, but in with that in mind, when you receive things for people, you're aware of to what capacity they're willing to hear it. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes they're like, no, my life is fine, but you know that they know on a level that it's not, right?
You're like, no, it's not. You can't just be there and like, no, it's not. You're like, yeah, no, it's not. That's why you're here. You can't say that to someone. Well, some people you can say it to, but sorry, go on.
No, you have to unravel the onion a little bit before they're willing to, right?
Definitely. And some people, they can sit down in front of you and you can think like, oh, you're in a terrible relationship. That's why you're doing this. That's why you feel like this. And that's probably why you're sitting here asking me about this person. But it's going to take you 25 minutes of other things to get to the point where they're open to hearing that thing, the real truth behind what's going on. And sometimes can't help it. It just comes out.
There's that too, right? They
really generally people are pretty good with not being too shocked, but they can. You got to be so careful.
So are there moments, I guess, of resistance where someone's like, I refuse to accept that, but later on they go, actually you were right. But have you had those moments where they're in the moment, no, I would never do that. No, I don't do that.
Oh, for sure. Like often. And it's usually a product of fear, because fear breeds control, and they want to feel in control, and they don't like the idea of someone else telling them what could be true or seeing things from a different perspective. So they have their vision of, hey, I feel this way because it's raining, right? And you're like, no, you don't feel that way because it's raining. You feel that way because you haven't addressed the situation at hand, that you haven't told your mother that she's annoying you, and you haven't put up the boundary with your mother. And they're like, no, it's just a rainy day. That's why I feel this way. And you're like, okay, well, here we go. And then by the end of it, they might say, yeah, I have been thinking that it's time to stand up to my mother. And I guess you are right. I guess, that we could, I should have that conversation, or whatever the thing is that they need to do. And one would think logically that the medium would then be sitting there going, yes, told you so, I'm so good. But you don't, because by the end of the reading, you're so almost exhausted by all the messages that you're like, okay, good, thank goodness. It's like relief rather than a win. It just, for me, it's just like relief. I'm like, oh, okay, we got there.
We got there. Yeah.
We got there.
It's just like, you don't know sometimes how to get from A to B with what you're given. Sometimes you just have to kind of trust it. So
Yeah.
like, another interesting, I guess, moment that can come up within mediumship is, what if there's a spirit that comes in and someone says for the first, like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, either, oh, I don't recognize that person. And you're like, no, clearly you do. Or even they don't want to talk to the person because there has been an uncomfortability with the relationship.
Yeah. So like, how would I handle that in a reading, do you mean?
Yeah. How do you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. If they don't want to talk to that person, move on.
Yeah.
Move on. Because they're not always going to tell you why they don't want to talk to that person, but it's generally a very good reason. Whether it is that it may reveal information about them that they want to keep secret, whether it is that that person may have abused them and brings up bristling energy. Generally, those are the main two. It's a product of abuse or information that they don't want revealed. Respect their privacy and respect their boundaries and move on. That spirit may be knocking on the door for the rest of the reading, pushing in, and it's your job as the medium and, with your gatekeepers, spirit guides, whoever you work with, to send that spirit away. And one thing you could do as well is you could say, all right, I'm open to receiving whatever the message is, but it has to be brought through a spirit guide, not through this person, because that person's not welcome in this reading today.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. So you're much more, like, within a psychic reading, you might push the point a little bit, but within a mediumship reading, if something is not accepted, especially the spirit, you're like, no, I honor the history of how you feel.
Well, yes, with the mediumship, but with psychic, sorry, I didn't address that. With psychic, I just let it hang.
Okay.
And they say, oh, I've got this great project. It's going to be awesome. What do you think? I said, oh, I see some challenges. And no, it's going to be great. It's not going to be challenging. We've already done it. It's great. And okay. And then there's that part of your brain that's like, well, why are you asking if you don't want to hear? But, like you can't go there, right? So just say, look, I'm seeing the following things. I might be wrong. I'm just going to let it hang there. I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing so that you can listen to the recording later. I always record readings. Gives people the chance to go back, and at a time where they may be more ready to hear other points of view, they then have the option to. But that's the thing about spiritual work. Like, we never know what's going to happen. There's always that interpretation. So always in the first to own up to the fact, like, hey, I might have interpreted this a different way to you. It may play out slightly differently, but I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing so that if it is even slightly similar to what I'm seeing, you have guidance on how to handle it at that moment. That's when you get the calls 5 years later, 10 years later, 2 weeks later. Hey, it's happening. You were right. Like, okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, okay, let's move on. It's not about proving yourself, it's about helping them. So you just got to think, like, how can I still give them the tools they need to help themselves, putting my ego aside so that they don't miss this really valuable opportunity to receive information they need.
Correct. Like, I think it's way cooler. I mean, of course, it's always nice if someone gives them, like, love or positivity. But I think it's way cooler that they reached out because something affected them so much. And you would only hope that a reading facilitates, like, positive change. And so the positive change, or the like, wow, I just recognized this, right? I just had something really stir inside of me and affect me. That's what really gets me excited, because I'm just like, okay, the reading did that for them. Not me, but the reading did that for them.
Yeah,
We all worked
exactly.
together and accomplished it, because it's like that trinity, you know. Even though the reader is passive in some cases with spirit, and the sitter is even more passive, the person coming in for the reading, we're all really working together. We really are.
Exactly. You know, and we're all working towards the common goal of helping this person move forward and to uplift them and empower them in their life.
Absolutely. And so I wanted to ask you too as well, like within your healing work, how has it influenced your mediumship, if it has?
I don't generally offer healing sessions, but I do find some might do it for friends or, you know, on special requests, second circumstances.
So
Yes.
like the energy healing class that you taught,
Yes, I do
yes,
teach.
like
I
that.
teach
Yeah.
healing, but I don't advertise it in practice. So
Okay.
I've done healing work for the same amount of time I've been doing readings, but I don't commercially offer healing sessions. It's something I know how to do. It's something I enjoy and love doing. And I think it's a combination of the liability of practicing healing can often be a little more complicated in the United States. And just that there's such a desire for psychic and mediumship work that I prefer to focus my energy on that. It's also quite draining to do healing sessions, but I will do them, like I said, for friends, for family, for certain people, if and when they want it. And the energy is profound. So it's something you could say I'm certified in, because I am qualified in, experienced in, but don't commercially offer. When I do a healing session, though, I find that following a large period of healing work, my mediumship does sort of become more physical. After that, my experience of mediumship becomes more physical. Have you had the same with yours?
With mine, I find that a lot of my healing work, correct, it helps stabilize the energy, so it helps me connect to spirit more easily. But a lot of my focus within my healing work is very psychic, because it's with the body. So you know, there's many different types of healing, like, you know, healing with like the auric field, or more like physical things, or and my mind is aware of people walking behind me and stuff at times, and I do ask for help, but I go, okay, you're here, I'm going to give that to you, and then I'm going to work on my stuff. So my mind is very much on more psychic things, even when I do healing, even though I have definitely noticed that the healing work can facilitate me to have more understanding of if someone's in the room, or if someone has to step in. So it does overlap, but I do find myself always kind of going a little bit the more psychic route, because that's just, I guess, actually how the energies I just most work with the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting how there can be so many different modalities that one can branch into, really, from this work. There's just so many areas it can take you.
Right. And that's why I was like curious, because I know people who do, let's say, a lot of mediumship, when they start working with healing more, they actually have a strong crossover of, oh, wow, the mediumship was enhanced through this. And so for me, the psychic gets enhanced unless I'm, let's say, really heavily working with a lot of mediumship that month or that week. Right. So it's like whatever you're working with, it just gets enhanced. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything that allows you to spend more time in the frequency of spirit and in connection with the spirit world is only going to make you stronger.
Absolutely. So it's like you never get bored, right? You never get bored.
You get tired, but you don't get bored.
Another thing that kind of dropped into my head of you never get bored. So I was talking earlier in the show, and I'm like, oh, I don't know why I wore black today. I really wanted to wear black, but then I see you and you're wearing black and pink. And so
my inspiration was to wear pink, and I have this really, really bright hot pink shirt. I thought it's just a bit much. I'm just not feeling that pink. And so I went for this one, and I heard you talking about black and pink, and I was sitting there like, ha, 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 this is so funny. Because obviously the shirt I'm wearing, for those listening on the podcast, it's black and pink with pink flowers. Yeah, pink's the color of the day, the rose quartz pink. Couldn't tell you why. I know we've got a new moon in Sagittarius. Don't particularly know if that has anything to do with it, but maybe. But I was definitely feeling it's pink day with a splash of black. So you got the memo.
Something. I know. Even when putting on this black, I was like, it needs something else. It needs some. That was the overwhelming feeling. It needs something else. I want pink. So if I had a pink and black shirt, I would actually probably would have wore it, but I don't have a pink and black shirt.
All right. So, if I see one, I'll send it your way.
Yeah, take it. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, I almost want to say it could be something to do with the state of the world. I always think like, oh, what's the state of the world right now? People need grounding and they need love. Yeah. Sounds about right. Grounding and love. Can never have too much of that.
That's right. I do feel so sometimes when I'm inspired to wear things, you know, there's times where you just want to wear something because you're just like, I'm in the mood to wear this. But a lot of times when I'm just inspired to wear things and I just don't have, I guess, a particular want at play, I'll show up at places and I'll be wearing the color, like whether it's my client or that my teacher is wearing or the person that I'm with on that day.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that comes up a lot.
That's interesting. I find it a lot with family members. Like I'll go to meet my mom or my sister or whoever I'm going to meet and we'll be wearing the same thing. And, you know, and obviously it's a bit embarrassing because it's like, oh, now we're twinning, you know, like we've planned it. But what do? You're already out and about. So, yeah, I've had that experience as well.
Yeah, I you know, it's the testament to connection, and there's really no distance between people. You know, we're really all connected. There's no distance between things, especially if your energy is there, your awareness is there. And correct, I think like for connections of the heart, or if you know you do have your energy and your, you know, there's enthusiasm, right? Like enthusiasm to learn. So I'll wear the same color as my teacher, something like that. But with my husband too, a lot of times we wear the same colors and we just don't even plan it. We'll just like, you know, oh, we're wearing the same color pants and shirt against it. It looks a little weird, but it's like we don't tell each other to do that. It just and same with your family. I think it's just like a heart connection, right?
Yeah, it's the mood and the vibe.
The mood and the vibe. So, okay, you mentioned earlier that you have a lot of mediumship reading one-on-ones you're going to be focusing on.
Yeah, that's pretty much the theme of the year is just, or the theme of the next few months, I guess. I try not to think too far ahead because you'll have a plan and it'll never go the way you think it's going to go, even with all the psychic abilities. You know, in this day and age, one thing I've learned is to just be very flexible with everything. So the focus for the next few months is one-on-one healing sessions and working with individuals. I just feel that there's a lot of work to be done in that sort of area. And then from there, I will be opening up places for mentoring, private teaching with students. And I am looking at bringing back the manifestation course as well next year. But just taking a break from that to focus on one-on-one readings for the next few months.
So where can people find you if they want to have a reading from you, or if they're interested about the manifestation course that you'll be doing next year? What's the best place that they can contact you at?
My website, which is calisesimone.com, or you can email me at contact@calisesimone.com.
Awesome. And you're on Instagram and Facebook as well, and various platforms if people want to find you. So people are saying a lot of hellos today. Thank you for all the hellos. Someone was saying that they're wearing light pink and black. So nice. They're vibing.
You know what I've started doing is I found this is on my days off, right? On my days where I'm not doing readings, I just pick based on what fabric feels comfortable. I'm not really into fashion the way I probably should be for someone my age. But when it comes to days where I'm doing readings or I'm going to meet people or, you know, have to think about, I should wear something, I ask Spirit what to wear and they'll tell me. Wear the pink shirt, wear the green shirt, wear this, wear that. And I don't have to think anymore. It's fantastic. But I do find that when I do choose those colors, there's often reasons why. You know, like, for example, today, if I wore a grey shirt and I'm sitting against a grey wall, I'll camouflage into the wall. You won't be able to see me. So it'll be kind of funny. Or, you know, you're going to a happy event with happy vibes. You want to wear a bright color and so on. So maybe people can try that out and have a bit of fun with their intuition and ask spirit, what should I wear today? And just see where it takes you.
Absolutely. And they don't steer you into blending into walls. They make sure
health and safety first.
That's it. They make sure that the people who need to see you will see you, and don't stand out where those need to find you. All right. So I always, you know, it goes by so fast, but I always, when we're wrapping up the show, give the guest kind of the last word or the last inspiration.
Okay. So for this episode, the last inspiration that I want to leave people with is to honor their true soul and their true spirit while being very polite to everyone around them. Be as you possibly can be, because that's what you were sent to the physical plane to be.
And that is needed, I think, during the holidays where everyone is around, friends and family, mostly family. And, you know, we don't choose our family, but we are with them for a reason. We're with them for a reason. And,
right.
You know, we find our way within the world, but we go back to our family, and our family is usually supposed to be very different from who we are.
Especially as you continue to grow and become more of who you need to be.
And to politely harness that for yourself, and maybe they can do it for themselves. So exactly. I love it. I love that message for the holidays. I'm just like that. That's the theme of the holidays. So I'm giving you a pat on the back for that. Yes. Yes, that's right. Thank you so much for being here today. It went by like a flash.
Right, it was so fast. Yeah.
It did. A bunch of people are saying happy Thanksgiving now. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody as well.
Absolutely.
And, if you would like a reading with Calise, please reach out to her. She's excellent. And everybody, please be safe with all the travels. We will see you on Friday for the reading show. Until then, go with luck, love, light, and don't forget to live. Thank you so much, Calise, for being here.
It's a pleasure. Bye. See you next time.
The truth is here and now on WLTKDB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.